Sam, you chime right in when after Billy answers. Um, who what are the Celtics going to do, or can they do to disrupt what Harden brings to the table?
So this is where the Celtics are going to struggle without Jaylen Brown because with Jaylen Brown, they had Tatum, Brown, and Smart, three good defensive players that could match up with KD, Kyrie, and Harden when all three are on the floor. But without Jaylen Brown, that's going to mean that Marcus Smart, he can guard either Kyrie or he can guard James Harden. Depending on who they choose, the other guy's going to get to go at either Kemba Walker or Evan Fournier most of the time,
Yep.
and that's a mismatch. So I think that's where it's really going to help Kyrie and James Harden because teams are going to have to pick their poison. I mean, even when you go to the Bucks, Drew Holiday's either guarding one of the two, and then you could put Chris Middleton on the other one, but I think that'll be a little bit of a mismatch. So one of them are going to have an option to score, and Fournier and Kemba, I mean, that's barbecue chicken for either one of them if they want to go at that. I think they might look to put Marcus Smart on James Harden just to take the head of the snake out because Harden's kind of leading the Nets offensive sets and then just try and deal with Kyrie going isolation on the wing. But it's going to be tough for the Celtics. I don't think they have the manpower to really compete in the series. And I don't know. I don't think anyone's stopping James Harden. He said yesterday, one of the Boston reporters in the media session, he asked James Harden how his matchups with Marcus Smart have been and all that. James Harden didn't even mention Marcus Smart. He just said, I don't really pay attention who they put on me. I can get to my spots no matter what. And that's how he feels. He's big. He's strong. He's got a great handle. He's going to get where he wants on the floor. And then he's just so smart that it doesn't really matter how much space he has. He can shoot under traffic. He's strong. He could keep someone on his shoulder and throw up the floater. He can pass it to anybody. So Harden really, I mean, I don't even know if you want to waste a defender on him. If you want to put Marcus Smart on him, maybe put Marcus Smart on Kyrie, make him struggle in isolation, and then just try and put two on the ball when Harden runs screens. So I don't know. Celtics have a tough challenge on their hands.
Sam, how do you stop an automated, self-propelled human bowling ball? Break that down for me. What is our coach from Hoosiers over there, Brad Steven cooking up? Give me something that he's gonna do to cancel out Harden.
I mean, they're definitely setting the tone as if like, I mean, Stevens' comments have almost been like we have no chance already, which I thought was an interesting
Honest.
tone coming from him. But yeah, I mean, like I think Billy kind of said it all, and I mean, I don't really see how they can keep up. I think if Brown was actually playing, I think you could convince yourself of an argument that like if Kemba's on, and you have like Kemba, Brown, Tatum, Smart, along with Tristan, who could probably give the Nets some issues depending on like Robert Williams' health and all that. But I think the Jaylen loss is huge, and I mean I don't know. It seems like even if Tatum like average, it's one of those things where it's like even if Tatum in the series averages like 40, which he won't, but even if he did, you're kind of like okay, like where I mean the Nets are going to score 120 to 130 points, so where are the other 80 to 90 points coming from? And I just don't see anybody keeping up with them.
When I was a kid, my grandma used to have this way of meting out corporal punishment. She would make you go and pick what a lot of my American friends call a switch. On my American side of the family, we still fondly refer to it as a switch. But my grandmother was talking to one of my cousins who didn't speak French or Haitian Creole, and asked the asked the neighbor, what do you call a switch? Or what do you call what she calls a liguoise, or her French word for it? And the neighbor told him, oh, that's just a whooping stick. And it was just hilarious to me that she would send my younger cousins who did not speak French. I do. I was raised by my grandma a lot of my years, so French and Spanish was my first language before English. And the whipping stick, my grandmother used to say it like this: "I'll prend whooping stick là pour moi." And I hear my grandmother calling for the whipping stick to be brought out, and I just when I dream it, I see it coming out of I hear my grandmother's voice, but I see it coming out of Steve Nash. Whooping Stickler is coming out. And I don't see anything that they could do. Even with this young superstar, Jason Tatum. I love him. I think he's going to be a net. I think KD is already recruiting him. I really believe that. I believe when it's time for us to re-up, that the next group of superstars will just come to Brooklyn again, especially if we win a championship and Mark shows that he's one of those Svengalis. The whooping stick is out. What can Jason Tatum do? Is he got a shot? Is he gonna? Can he somehow, especially from that 50-point outburst the other night, to get them, through this playing tournament thing? How can the young kid possibly come up against us and maybe argue for them? What stops the whooping stick?
I think when you look at this series, we don't know how competitive it's going to be, but the thing I'm looking forward to most is that KD-Jason Tatum matchup, because KD, he's been out a lot of the year, and he's still kind of rounding into form. I mentioned the last week of the season, it seemed like his total game started to come into focus more. His assists were up, his defense was better. Steve Nash said KD's going to see a lot of time on Jason Tatum, as he should. This is the playoffs now. It's not a regular season game where you put KD on another player so he doesn't have to exert as much energy defensively. I mean, the stars guard the stars in the playoffs. If he's your best defensive option, KD's got to guard Tatum. So I think we're going to see a lot of that, which might give a little more scoring load to Harden and Kyrie, which is fine. That's why the Nets have 3 stars. But KD and Tatum is going to be a great matchup. KD looked really good defensively on him on Christmas with his length, kind of being able to compete with Tatum's length. So I'm looking at that matchup. But for the Celtics, I think they need Tatum to average 30. They need Kemba to average 20 to 25. They need 50 points a game from Kemba and Tatum just to even enter the conversation of winning a game.
Hell
they need
no.
that every night. They
That's
need that
not
every night. So
that's not.
So if you get, I mean, I could see it. I mean, 30 and maybe 20 with the two of them. But they need at least that. And then, but that's only. I mean, what is that? That's 50 points. You're still going to need another 80 points maybe to compete with the Nets. Where is that coming from? You're going to get 15, even 20 from Marcus Smart, which would be a lot. I mean, I just don't see how the numbers add up for the Celtics with their injuries with Jaylen Brown now to be able to reach the Nets offensively, and they're not elite enough defensively to make up for it. So you told me to make a case for the Celtics. I'm struggling here. I don't see one for them. I think I'm picking Nets in 5. I think if they had Jaylen Brown, it would be Nets in 6. Jason Tatum's good enough, and that Celtics crowd will be loud enough. I think by Game 4, they're supposed to have 100% capacity or something like that, I've heard. So even if they're down 3-0, I think with a loud Boston crowd, packed for one of the first times of the season, I think that they'll maybe get the energy to win that game. It'll be a gentleman's sweep of some sort. Jason Tatum's good enough to get a game, but I really don't see how the Celtics can compete in this series. They don't pose any real matchup problems for the Nets. Like, if you look at a team like if the Nets played the Wizards, okay, Russ and Beal, at least they're the perimeter attack. The Nets don't have a ton of perimeter defenders that maybe they can give the Nets some trouble. The Celtics aren't overly big either to make the Nets pay inside. They kind of are built similarly to the Nets, but just with worse players in each position.
Yeah.
Like Kemba's significantly worse than Kyrie, but similar mold. Tatum's worse than KD, but similar mold. And then they don't have a piece to match up Harden. So I really don't know how they can exploit the Nets. To me, they're built similarly, but just considerably less talented.
Look, dude, I can't even find a line for a sweep. It's only in New York. We can't do FanDuel or DraftKings by IP address. You have to kind of drive to the
soon.
Don't remind me.
Oh yeah, listen,
Soon.
I can't wait. I can't. It's probably good that it's such a hard thing to do. I probably would have gambled away my second kid's.
I would have been a disgrace at this point.
So, I'm betting the sweep. You give Sam.
Yes, sir.
Whooping stick la la. Wait a minute. Tell me something that we've got. I mean, let's make this show interesting. Give me an argument for Jason Tatum saving the day, emerging as a superstar, and sending us home sad. Well, how does that happen?
Yeah, I mean, I'm with Billy in that I think I'm going to give you literally the exact same answer. In that I think if Brown was there, I actually think it could have legitimately been a series. I think the Celtics are low key, a really good 7 seed. I think the Celtics if they were playing in a series are better than the the two teams in the 4-5. So, I mean, and they have had, as much as I don't want to give Bill Simmons and his mob any credit, they have had the year from hell in a lot of ways with like the Tatum COVID situation. Smart got hurt, Brown got hurt, Robert Williams got hurt. The bench has basically been decimated as well. So the Tatum COVID thing where he needs like an inhaler before every game. So they've had a lot of stuff go down, and I think they deserve more credit than they've gotten. But with no Brown and the firepower of the Nets big three, like I don't know. I don't see it as possible. I mean, I'm curious. Were you guys rooting for the Celtics or the Wizards in the game? Because I actually was rooting for the Celtics without Brown. If the Wizards, if the Celtics had Brown, then I think it's obviously much closer. The Wizards played the Nets super well, but also Beal looks like he's at 60% right now, 65%. So I guess we'll see how tonight's game goes.
Yeah, I think the Wizards could have gotten a couple of accidental wins against us. But I never cared between Boston and the Wizards. My mind is so firmly in, just put that this is a championship basketball team. I don't look at misshapen, thrown together teams like the Washington Wizards as a problem. Like, just because they have Russell Westbrook is going to go through periods where he can't hit the broadside of a barn. And I've never seen Bradley Beal just go off in a playoff. I've actually seen John Wall go off in a playoff, and I've never seen Bradley Beal just grab a game by its collar and just take over. I will say, though, that with Jaylen Brown being hurt, obviously Boston would be the better choice out of the two. But I've never felt like, I'm worried about if it's these other guys. No, we have to come to grips with the fact that there's never been anything like this before. And because there's never been anything like this before, we make the wrong comparison. Like, actually, Golden State Warriors had a lot of traditional, good, fundamental pieces, but none of them could match offensively. Like, I'm sorry, as an offensive weapon, Klay Thompson is a better shooter than than James Harden as a third piece or second piece, however you want to classify either one of them. But I'm talking about all of the things that he can do and the impact that he has on the game. Klay Thompson is nowhere near James Harden. James Harden is an MVP. Okay? Kevin Durant is an MVP. Kyrie Irving is not an MVP, probably will never win an MVP based off of how I think the voting works. But Kyrie Irving we added 2 MVPs to the greatest basketball talent that has ever played in New York City. I don't care, I love those old Knicks from the 70s from a theoretical place. I love Clyde Frazier. I think he's the greatest just because he has the rings. But if Kyrie wins a ring, he is the greatest basketball talent, the greatest handle in a point guard city, in a city that's produced some of the greatest point guards ever. That dude is the greatest player, and he's nothing in comparison to the other two. He's more commensurate with a Klay Thompson. And Klay Thompson is Golden State Warriors, a great team, an amazing group of guys, but we don't have a Barnes, a Harrison Barnes on this team. We don't have that kind of you step down that from the great players. And yes, we do not have a Draymond Green. I'm sorry, you could cobble together what Draymond Green brings in a few players, and you've never seen an offense like this. Where does the lack of defense get us? Is it in the Boston Celtics? Can they do play defense? They are a well defensively coached team. If defense wins playoffs, could that possibly be our downfall? Sam, I'm gonna go to you first, and then go to Billy after. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just I think this. I think the Celtics' only chance is really through like knock on wood, some type of injury. Because
Misfortune. Yeah.
what'd you say?
Misfortune is their